My name is Andrew Jackson. I'm a photographer and I'm based in Montreal, Canada. So the work is called In the Night of the Day, and it refers to how the Blitz affected a group of individuals on both sides of the war. It's a booklet in the physical exhibition, but it's essentially a novella. It's a 30,000 word novella which kind of charts these different experiences. This kind of commission was a new way of working. Originally it was going to be a photographic work, and how it worked, I was collaborating with the Sandwell archive. So the original idea was to, find images within the archive which I could respond to in terms of contemporary images. But when I kind of found this particular story, I just wanted to create this world of 1941, and I felt that interjecting contemporary images into that would try and somehow break that. And the idea was to create this chronological order of these 24 hours. And everybody who is depicted within the text really existed, but then I imagined the conversations between people, and I imagine how individuals might have felt. And the majority of the work is found online. And the work online is interactive in the sense that there are lots of different sources from a range of different archives. Information about the war itself, which frames the experience of these two individuals. Doreen, who was 24 at the time, and her mother Amy, who had, the kind of sad ironies of life is that they were living in Acton, which was perceived to be an area which was going to be bombed. A single bomb didn't drop in Acton, and yet they moved up to Smethwick to be safer, and they are killed. And the other sad irony within the work, maybe I shouldn't give too much away, but is that it's a bit like the work I did with my parents about migration, in the sense that we make choices. And these individual choices take us on different pathways in life. And my mother had a choice to go into America, so come to England, and I always wondered what that pathway would have been for her if she'd gone to America. And on the evening of Amy and Doreen's death, they have a choice: do they clear out the water in the air raid shelter, or do they leave it till tomorrow? And they left it until tomorrow, and unfortunately, plane is shot down and crashes into their house. So is all of these things about, things which seem inconsequential can have life-changing. The fact that the bomber took off on time in France, if it was delayed 5 minutes later, it wouldn't have bumped into the fighter which shot it down, and so forth. So all these different divergences of time, of individuals, and experience and choices end up in this moment in time. But it's also the idea that trauma can disappear. The council decided to demolish these two houses and build them in a different spot. Where it happens, it seemed attempted to be erased, and yet all of these hidden traumas surround us and go by it unseen. And the fact that these 7 people died is also unseen, because we don't want these traumatic experiences. But in our attempts to erase history, that doesn't always erase the trauma, I guess. I think what I found is I really enjoyed the research element. Archives, in many respects, they are subjective, like a photograph. That somebody makes a choice about what is preserved and what is excluded from the archive. And it was interesting to see what existed within the archive of these two individuals and what didn't exist. And it was sad in one respect that the only remaining evidence of these two people's existence on planet Earth were their names and a death register. And I guess from there, was an attempt again to find out who these people were, an attempt to find out who they were. One of the reasons why I attempt to humanize these individuals is that if you look through the information in the archive, you got, these, unfortunately, you got the civilian death register, and you can go through and you'll see 12 people on one street. 5 in terms of this incident, as well as Amy and Doreen, who are the kind of main characters. Their next door neighbors, a family of 5, also died. So you have these 7 people who just, are just taken away in an instant. And so after the work was made, then we have the pandemic. And then you can't start to see the similarities between that Blitz period, where people suddenly have to create and find a new normal, and suddenly everything which existed before then just disappears and you end up with this new reality. But also it kind of coincided with the time when politicians were trying to create this wartime spirit. Boris Johnson was talking about the Blitz and so forth. And in reality, in the 8-month periods of the Blitz between September 1940 and May 1941, 40,000 people died. In the comparison time over the pandemic, over 100,000 people died. And it was similar and different in the same way, in the fact that we both, our generation and that wartime generation, had to adapt to survive, I guess. And those different, observations were interesting at the time, because it was mainly finished before the pandemic started, but I did it in weekly installments, and I kind of reworked things on a weekly basis, which I guess also helped me get through the pandemic, because my kind of photographic work had stopped, and so I could focus on writing the text, but also putting it out on the 80th, I think it was this 79th anniversary and the 75th anniversary of the Second World War. So it started on, the installment started on the 79th anniversary of 1941, the actual date, and then finished on the 75th anniversary, the end of the Second World War in Europe. So that kind of bubble, I think, online people reacted to it very well, I think.